You Frugalistas, and welcome. Today I have a special guest, and of course, all of my guests are special. Today's guest is someone who has developed strategies to help himself and others build wealth. But first, I have a favour to ask of you. If you enjoy this podcast and find it useful for you, please pay it forward by sharing with a friend. And even better, please follow the Joyful Frugalista podcast. Todd Polke is an investor, entrepreneur, and international educator. Sorry, I'm just going to start that again because I lost my teleprompt.
You're right.
I don't know why they did that. I know, because it's trying to do AI. What is it? Everything sort of goes a bit strange with AI now. They can't sort of do normal stuff. Where do they all disappear to? Bring up the other version of it on the screen. I'll go old school. Weird that it's disappeared though. Todd Polke is an investor, entrepreneur, and international educator in wealth creation. With over 20 years of experience, he has helped thousands of investors build high-performing portfolios and facilitated over 1.5 billion, yes, that is billion, in global opportunities. He is founder of Portfolio Wealth, a featured commentator on Sky News and Your Money, and author of Escape the Middle, Switch on Your Millionaire Mindset and Build Wealth that Outlives You. Hello and welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Serena. Really appreciate it.
It's great to have you on this podcast, and we had a good chat before, and I know it's going to be a really fabulous podcast. Congratulations on your book. It's a really great read, and I can tell that you have been disciplined for quite a number of years in terms of building up your wealth.
Well, that's very true, and even writing the book has been a disciplined process, as you well know, right? So it's been 2 years of a love journey writing that book, and I'm really proud of what's come out. It's going to help a lot of people, and I'm just very grateful that I had a lot of disruptions and good mentors and good guides along the way in my own wealth journey. It really has been one of the biggest, indicators, biggest turning points for myself in my life and the opportunities I have now.
Yeah, definitely. They always take a lot longer than you think writing a book.
Right, exactly right.
So the subtitle of your book is Switch on Your Millionaire Mindset and Build Wealth that Outlives You. So it's really all about, building to becoming a millionaire. But before we talk about the millionaire bit, I actually wanted to talk about the wealth that outlives you. So
My favorite topic.
yeah, so this concept of legacy. So as you know, there's been quite a lot of discussion, particularly in the financial independence, retire early community, about Bill Perkins' controversial book, Die with Zero. And there's a lot of people in that FIRE community who really do aim to do that. They, have spreadsheets where they look about how they are going to die with, nothing left at all. And there's problems and issues with that. And I must say, it kind of freaks me out, that concept of, sort of going through all your money. Maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. I don't know. What are your views on this?
Yeah, and we were talking before. I actually, honestly, I think retirement is a very low standard to have in life. I don't think that's what life is all about. I've retired twice before, and I got bored out of my mind after a couple of weeks, and got back to living, and got back to, serving, and got back to giving back, and all those different things. And now that obviously doesn't mean that you can't give back if you're retired or things like that. But I think that you should be building a life you don't have to retire from, and that's my whole premise behind it. And I talk about wealth which outlives you, and don't get me wrong, I want everyone to make as much money as you possibly can, have an incredible experience of life, live a life unlimited by income. But then how can you find something bigger than yourself, bigger than the whole idea of spending everything you possibly have to be able to give back to and leave the world in a better place because you were here, building wealth which outlives you?
Yeah, look, I'm sort of in two camps with this, because on the one hand, it's like, as a good friend says to me, why would you be the richest person in the graveyard? So I have a very good friend who's been an early money mentor, Trish, and her and her husband, they're traveling the world. In fact, they're in Singapore right now, and I think you're in Singapore too, or they have been in Singapore, and then they've been on a cruise around Asia. And they go to some amazing places, and they're very well provided for. So, with defined benefit schemes and money coming in. And they're a bit like, well, now it's the time of life to really spend that. But on the other hand, we do have quite a growing gap in terms of the income that some older Australians have versus some younger Australians who are trying to, buy a house. We've got record low fertility rates with a lot of young people not being able to afford to have kids. So
Yeah.
it sort of feels a bit strange sometimes.
Mm. Yeah, look, I completely agree. And the whole landscape in the world is shifting. Now, I like the couple that are doing their cruises and things like that, absolutely. And everybody should be aiming towards that. My father just got back from his 20th trip to Africa or something. No, he's just been in India and he's been trekking up mountains to find snow leopards. And so, like, I go and tell my father, I keep saying, like, go spend everything. It doesn't bother me. Like, we're fine, right? Go spend everything. Happy days. Go and really enjoy things. He's going, no way. Like, I really want to make sure I leave something behind for you boys. I've got myself and my two brothers. So I think there's a beautiful balance to find where absolutely experience life. I don't believe in, we live in such an extraordinary, beautiful, special world. Like, why would you not want to experience everything the world has to offer? But then you talk about, like, well, do we have an obligation? And so I personally feel I do, and maybe that's just my value system, but I personally feel that, well, with my kids, I want to be able to give them a helping hand because I think about, I've got a 13-year-old daughter going on 20, which I have feelings about. And
Grow
I
up
have
so
a
quick.
yeah. This whole teenage girl type of thing is an experience, and I have an 18-month-old son, and I sit there and I go, even for my 13-year-old, like, what's it going to be like when she turns 20, be able to afford a home? We've seen that the average age of the first home buyer is now up to 36 to 37 years old. The number of first home buyers in their 40s now has doubled in the last 3 to 4 years alone. And I think it's going to get worse. I think we're going to be a nation of renters. And that's where we're heading towards. And there's going to be a big wealth gap that's going to be created. And one of those big wealth divides is going to be between, who has a home and who doesn't, who owns real estate and who doesn't. So I just, for me, one of my value systems, I feel that I want to give back to the world in a bigger way, and I want to really help my family and build intergenerational wealth. Super important to me.
You talk in your book about waking up in the middle of the night with this fear that you haven't really set up
Yeah.
legacy systems. Must have been some nightmare.
Yeah, in the book I talk about this because I've my background is in property investing, right? That's where I started my career in property investing. But then I learned how to trade shares and taught shares and options, and as the world of cryptocurrency came along, I dove into that and business investing. I do a whole lot of stuff. But like in 2017 is when I started building a lot of wealth in the world of cryptocurrency. And all of a sudden I realized that, like, as I said, one night I literally woke up in tears, realizing that if something happened to me now, my daughter is going to get none of what I've been able to create because she doesn't know how to access it. She doesn't know what to do with it. No one knows how to get a hold of it. I was the only one. I was holding the keys, no pun intended, right? I was holding the keys to everything. But the other key that I was holding is a whole lot of education and knowledge and hard fought experience which is the greatest gift. And I wouldn't be able to pass that down to her because I hadn't set it up in a way where I could actually make sure she can become someone who can not only build wealth but maintain wealth and actually design a life of freedom and opportunity and choice. And I think that freedom is everyone's birthright, and it's time that we have to take it back.
Yeah, that must have been like quite a moment of realization. And that actually does make sense because, like, I guess in the past when we talked about investments, they were probably people might have had the family home, they might have had a bank
Right.
account, and you could find those things pretty easily. But now there's all sorts of, online-based digital type investments, and you probably couldn't find them by searching, say, a property register, going to the land titles and searching in people's names. They're sort of out there. So it's more important than ever to keep records of these things.
Yeah, and records, and so I think about it more than that. Like, yes, records and what my wishes are, but how can I how can I train my daughter? How can I train my kids to be able to be great money managers? Like, even if I'm not here. And so, when I sat up and I was at 2 a.m. in the morning, I was in tears. I had this realization. I spent the next 2 to 3 hours writing the first draft of my legacy plan, right? And that legacy plan was not just here's where you find everything, here's who you need to talk to, here's who's going to be able to help you, but like, how much of my wealth am I going to pass to my it was not just my daughter at the time. I've got an 18-month-old son, so this was after that fact. How much am I going to allow her to have access to at different stages of her life, and which mentors does she need to go work with before she get access to this level of capital, and what the values does she need to demonstrate. And so I mapped out an entire plan to do the best I possibly can so that she can become educated with money and wealth even without me being there. And that's just another part of legacy for me. It's just like the lessons of a life well lived. How can I pass that along to my kids, which is the most valuable type of opportunity, is what I believe.
Yeah, look, I totally hear you. A 12 and 14, 12 and 15-year-old, that's right. I've got a 15-year-old going on 16. Oh my goodness, the time goes so quickly. They have micro investing accounts, and I'm surprised particularly how much the youngest one enjoys that. And I often think back to when I was their age and I had my first outside of the home business job when I was 15, and I wanted to invest in shares, and it was really difficult because I didn't know how. And back
Yeah.
in those days, you had to find a broker, you had to ring them up. And I was thinking,
Mm.
who on earth would talk to a 16-year-old, 15, 16-year-old girl? Like
Yeah.
it was so confronting. But now, of course, it's super easy. Not only can they do it online, but they can have micro investing apps and they can check it on their phone. And it's really super easy for them.
It's really accessible now, isn't it? And this is what I
Yeah,
think
it
about it,
is.
like the investing and the education and like so I'm 40, 41, 42 this year, right? And so like similar to yourself, I got started in the workforce when I was about 12 or 13 years old in my first job, and I was always even driven back then and wanted to be able to get started in investing, but it was really challenging and learning how to do it. I mean, my parents couldn't teach me; they had no idea. The education system certainly wasn't teaching me in any way, shape, or form. Like the only thing I could do was try and buy some books from a bookstore. Like internet was still the weird dial-up, that thing. I don't know if.
At least you had internet.
Right. Well, fair enough. Yeah. So I had that, but that was about 14 or something like that. We got that, but it's so accessible now that anyone can do it. And same as you, my kids have investing accounts, and that they're building and compounding their wealth from word go, and it's possible for everybody.
Yeah, it's possible, but the key issue is them doing it. And
Right.
as we're recording this, it's in the middle of a share market correction following the Trump leveling tariffs on aluminium
Yeah.
and steel, which is really interesting because Australia's still not a huge major producer of either of those two, but it's had a profound impact on our economy.
It's just, and this is exactly what share market is. It's just like run by emotions a lot of the time, and like I was reading about that as well. And exports that go to the US for those particular products is like 0.5% or something like that of our overarching exports. It's really next to nothing, yet it's had this massive impact, which is irrational.
Yeah, runs on sentiment, exactly. But when you're in it for the long run, you see that, and we're sort of looking and going, yeah, but overall it's still fine. Like, so but learning about that too, and when you're in it for the long run, you don't panic when these things happen.
Yeah. And that's what they say, like wealth is a marathon, it's not a sprint, right? Anyone that's in there for the quick wins, it's just get rich quick thinking, and get rich quick thinking is short-term decision making, and short-term decision making sacrifices long-term results. And so like we all have to be in there for the long haul. A lot of people when they find themselves in a certain financial position in life and they feel unhappy about it. And they might have spent decades getting themselves into that financial decision, but then they expect it to change overnight and they go off chasing shiny objects and all these type of things. And it never works. It never works. Wealth has to be built by building a deep and strong foundation first. And this is where we see the mindset stuff, like what comes first, is $1 million in a bank account, or is becoming a millionaire as a person to begin with. And I know it's the mindset, I know it's the psychology to begin with. And this is where we see lotto winners. They win millions of dollars, yet 3 to 5 years later 95% of them are exactly where they were before they won that money, because their internal operating system, meaning their mindset, didn't shift to compensate for the amount of money they actually had. And so their external money resources rewound to their internal environment. And we see it time and time again. So that psychology and mindset and that deep, strong foundation is essential for everything. And it takes time.
Yeah, it does take time, and that financial literacy is a good big part of it, and you talk about that in your book too, the importance of developing those basic financial literacy skills.
It's critical. And, whenever, the whole premise around the Escape the Middle book is that in life, where we're not taught how to live a life of financial freedom. We're not given the type of education that you teach people on your podcast and what you do and what I teach investors to do. We're in no type of formal education system are we taught how to take care of our money, how to grow wealth, how to create freedom, how to design the life of our dreams. And we're taught this, well, just go to school and study hard, get a safe, secure job and go straight into the middle and buy a home and pay it off and put your money away in a super and hope it's going to save you. And people wind up living this middle level of life, middle level of experience, middle level of happiness, middle level of income, middle level of earning, middle level of freedom, middle level of opportunity. And the whole premise of the book is to give people an escape plan. And like it all starts with psychology and mindset and making the decision. You know, I talk about this done moment, getting to a done moment in your life and making this decision to go against the grain and do something different. And financial education is a critical part of that.
So your done moment, and you talk about this in your book as well. Perhaps you could share with my listeners, what was your done moment?
Right. I was very fortunate to have my done moment very early in life. And I got to that moment from a point of pain, right? And sometimes often our greatest distinctions in life and changes come from a point where we get to this point of like so much pain, I don't want to do any, like I want to, something needs to change. And so before I got involved in the world of investing and wealth creation, you know, I was a personal trainer, an incredibly burnt out personal trainer. I was getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning to run boot camps and to start training clients. I'd go through at about 10 or 11 in the morning with clients, have a bit of a break in the middle of the day where I pretended to study at university because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. That's what my parents always taught me I should do. I'd start again about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and go through about 8 o'clock in the night with clients. But running a business, it doesn't stop there, right? Because running a business, and you know this, Serena, like your time, just because you've run out of clients, it doesn't mean the number in the days have stopped, right? In the number of the hours in the day have stopped. And so I had all the stuff you got to do for business, like, you know, admin, bane of my existence, marketing, clients to take care of, programs to write. And so my day would finish at midnight and then I'd start again the next day at 4 a.m. because I had this rule of life was that the harder I work, the more successful I'll become, right? And that's the whole premise in how I was trying to live my life.
I'm laughing a little bit because there's a lot that's written about, you know, particularly male executives who do get up at 4:30 in the morning to be with their personal trainers and go to the gym. And, you know, they write about this with a lot of pride, how they go through and they never sleep. But yes, the next part of the story is...
Yeah, I was one of those. I used to think that the less sleep I have, it was a badge of honor, right? And the more, and I used to be addicted to being busy. Like, I'm so busy. It was like this badge of honor I used to wear. I mean, I realized what a low standard to have in life. That's not what life is about. And what you're absolutely right about is that, I was sleeping 4 hours a night. And so I wasn't recovering properly. And so, I was playing judo for Australia at that point in time. I was in the army. I was, doing triathlons, lifting a lot of heavy weights. And I was not recovering. And so here I was, a personal trainer, getting sick all the time. Go Todd, great role model, well done. You're really showing people how it's done. Because I was fit, but I wasn't healthy. It's two very different things. And then I had this experience of going for a run down the road. And, I was living in Brisbane at the time and working out a Fitness First at North Quay. And I got 400 metres down the road and my legs basically, I couldn't walk anymore. And I had to catch a cab back to the gym.
How old were you when this happened?
This was 19
So you're not an old man, right?
No, this is
Sorry?
19 years old. Yeah, I was looking like an old man probably, but I was 19 years old when this all happened, right? And 2 weeks later, I wound up in hospital having surgery on both my legs. Go Todd, personal trainer, can't walk. My relationship was broken. I had no personal life to think about. And the one area that I thought was supposed to be working based on how many hours I was putting in was my finances. And then I looked at my bank account, realizing after working 17 hours a day, 6 days a week, 50 weeks of the year, that I was still broke financially. And I realized the system is broken. And I got to that point sitting on the Kangaroo Point cliffs in Brisbane after running another boot camp. It was December 15. And I got to the point of going, I thought life was supposed to be about more than this. There has to be a better way. And that started me out on my journey. I had this done moment, line in the sand, done, step over it, never look back.
I can just imagine it, hot Brisbane day. And I know that view is beautiful up there, just going, yep, this is enough.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Done moment, enough. Not another moment, not another day. And it started me out on this journey of studying successful and wealthy people because I realized that they must be doing something different. I realized that they must have a different system. I didn't have the words to put to it at the time, but they must have a different system, a different set of rules in how they play the money game of life and the business game of life and the work game of life. And there has to be another way. And so I just started becoming obsessed with finding out what truly does make the difference. And it was a turning point for me in my life, big time.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. So, along this journey, what are some of the habits that you believe are important then to set people up for long-term mindset abundance?
I'm a big believer in habits. You know, my experience around creating success in any arena in life, it's not about the one big, crazy, outrageous leaps you take, right? It's about the small, seemingly insignificant things that you do on a consistent basis that stack up and stack up and stack up until they avalanche to this thing called wealth and success. So habits is where it's at, right? And the most beautiful thing about knowing that is that because it's about the small things, it means that anyone can do it. It doesn't matter. You know, one of the big things that I talk about when it comes to habits is to the habit of challenging your comfort zone, right? Is one of the very first ones I talk about in the book, right? And I go into a lot of detail around this because I think it's really important. You know, most people in life, they stay very firmly within their comfort zone, right? Where I know what I'm supposed to do. I know who I'm supposed to be. I know what I should expect. I know what I shouldn't expect. I know how to handle this arena of my life. And there's a circle, and people like to sit dead center in that circle. And now, it doesn't mean they're happy in that circle. It just means they're comfortable. There's two different things. Comfort and happy are two different things. Often what happens is that people, they keep oscillating around the same journey of life, getting the same results, doing the same things, same results, same things, same results. And at some point in people's lives, they get to a point, some people do, some people don't. They get to a point of going, oh, I thought it was about more, right? I thought there was a better way to do this, right? And so what happens is that they start on a different journey. Well, let's try something else. And so they start stepping away from the center point and moving towards that edge of the comfort zone, step by step by step. And as they get closer, they start to, this thing called fear comes up. Oh my goodness, I'm so far away from where I am, and step, and they get to the edge of comfort zone, and then they have this freak out experience. Oh my goodness, like retreat back to where we started, and then they go, oh, whew, thank goodness I'm back to where, oh, at least I know what's going to happen next, and then they stay there until they get dissatisfied again and creep out and self-sabotage, and they bounce out, bounce in, bounce out, bounce in. And so, like, I think, you know, and this might be my personal training background coming out, it's like a muscle, right? You just train it. And one of the biggest, one of the great and fun habits that I like to teach a lot of my students is how to challenge comfort zone on a consistent basis. Like, do something different night, once a week or once a fortnight. Do it with your partner, or if you by yourself, go do something different, something other than what your normal process would be. And it could be as something simple as walking a different way home from work, or going to a different bar that you would normally attend, or going into a weird games night, or go put yourself in a slightly different environment than what you're used to. Have a different type of conversation, because you're just working that muscle of challenging comfort zones. And so when it's time to challenge the comfort zone for something bigger, you've already got that muscle built within there. And I think that's one of the most powerful habits, because it's one of those foundational habits which can then, like, be that domino effect for so many more.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's all those things I agree with. And I guess investing is very deeply uncomfortable for a lot of people. There's always this concern that you're going to lose money. Like I
Right.
remember many, many years ago, wanted to set up a share investing club with friends, and we were only putting a small amount in. It was kind of like the amount that you would spend if you went out to dinner. And like, you know, someone would bring snacks. So like, it's basically like going out to dinner with friends. But this fear of losing that money, even though you'd probably spend more if you had, you know, were
Right.
going out instead, it really, like, you just saw people just drop off because they're just like, oh, I might lose that money.
Yeah. And so then you go, well, where does that come from? What creates fear, right? And
Yeah.
it's a lack of experience, and it's a lack of knowledge. Like, what takes away fear is get some more knowledge, get yourself educated, and have some experiences, right? And you know, I always talk about, and I talk about this in the book as well, is that you want to normalize wealth creation, right? Because what's normal for most people is let's work to pay a bill, and that's normal. And what if instead we made the mindset shift that we're going to normalize wealth creation in our life. We're going to normalize financial freedom, right? And that by normalizing that, it just becomes, we become more comfortable with it, right? And so how do we do that? Well, I believe that money has an energy, right? Money loves order, money loves structure, money loves to be valued. And money, there's an energy to money, right? And so when we start to get ourselves educated, and we take that first step along this journey to start read some articles or read a book like this or whatever it might be, all of a sudden we start to learn some different things that we knew before. And as we learn these different things, our level of awareness starts to open up. As our level of awareness and comfort starts to open up, we actually might have the confidence to take that first baby step into our investing. And investing doesn't have to be, oh, let's buy a property or buy, 100 grand worth of shares. It could be, well, I'm going to invest $5 a week. It doesn't matter, right? Because as we start to put some money into the market, we start to program our subconscious, unconscious mind that this pathway, this journey is something that's important to me. And our unconscious mind goes to work to find more ways to fulfill the outcome that you're programming your mind to. And you take this step around, and as you take this step forward, your awareness opens up. You've had some more experiences. Your confidence grows. You start to look for other ways to learn some more. And all of a sudden, these small little baby steps you get the education, you get the awareness, you get these experiences, and all of a sudden that fear just starts to dissipate. And it's just a thing, because money is just a tool. That's all it is. And the biggest differentiator between people who build wealth versus those that don't has to do with becoming a better quality financial decision maker. So how can we learn some more, have some more awareness, have some more experiences, so we can make more effective decisions that we can feel confident putting one foot in front of the other?
Yeah, I hear you with all of that too. I've got to wait till things are perfect before I invest.
Right.
I had a
Yeah.
girlfriend recently say to me, "Oh, I'm going to sell my house and then going to do this and this, and then I'm going to start investing in shares." And I kind of said, "Well, don't wait. Just do like a micro share investing." While I invest in proper shares and contribute to the maximum in my superannuation, I also have a micro investing account, which is what I do when I sell things I no longer need or want. So
Yeah,
as
right.
I'm decluttering, I sell, and they're only small amounts of things I sell often. Like I'm not going to brag that I'm earning, a six figures from it, because I'm not yet. One day I
But it
might,
adds
but
up,
at this
doesn't it? It
point,
adds up. Yeah.
but it adds up. It adds up really
Yeah.
quickly. The market's just had a correction, but so far I've got about $1,300 in there. But the point is, like, that's money that I would not have had I not sold things that no longer bring me joy in my house. But through that process, I'm learning. So I said to my friend, when people ask, I say, well, it might be something you just want to sell, a bit of extra money, $5, $10 a
Yeah.
year. It doesn't have to be big, but you're learning and you're being consistent about it.
Yeah. I love what you said there. I just want to touch on that. I sell things that no longer bring me joy in my house. I think that's incredible, right? That decluttering process, we talk about, and my wife and I do this as well. If it's not an F yes, it's an F no. That's our standard, right? It's like, and our interactions in our life want to bring us joy, and if it doesn't, we just refuse to do it, or we will get rid of it 100%. So I just want to touch on that. I love that you're doing that. I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely
I also
phenomenal and
give away a
incredible.
lot. I
Mm.
also give away a lot to friends, and I also give away a lot in my Buy Nothing community. I'm an admin for there. And it was actually a bit of a mentally hard for me, because now I'm in a good financial space. I sort of felt, morally I should be giving things away rather than selling them. And then I sort of went, yeah, but hang on, I'll buy things secondhand. So like, what's wrong with
Yeah.
me selling them secondhand? And it's not the money really. It's like, weirdly enough, like I find sometimes people value things more when they pay something for it. So it's not like about cheating people or anything. It's a fair price, and it's actually a really nice interaction. The people I meet with are really lovely, and they're very grateful, and it reaches a broader market.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how we get this guilt programming comes up where
Yeah.
like when we're, even like receiving money at times or selling it, or I should be doing this or I should be doing that. And we just overload this kind of guilt programming on us. And unfortunately, money has a lot of guilt attached to a lot of people. Like a lot of people have very dirty minds when it comes to money. And we learn all these different things around what money is and what money does to people and what money means. And, all you have to do is look at every movie that's almost ever made. It's always the evil person is wealthy and greedy, and the hero of the story is poor and an up and comer or something like that. It's almost every movie is kind of made like
Who
that, and
becomes
so
wealthy?
Right, yeah, later on, yeah. So we get this weird programming around, and there's a lot of guilt created around money. Like, and I just tell all my students that I get pretty upfront with people about it. Like, just get over it. Like, it's just some bullshit experience that you just picked up from somebody else or society or education along the way, and it's not yours. It's you inherited it from somebody, and all you got to do is put it down and realize that it's just there's just an energy to money, and when we have this guilt to it, we start to push it away, and it's a scarcity mindset, which is then pushing money away from you, right? And like this is
Yeah,
where the mindset stuff is so important.
yeah, most definitely. So I now have a final question for you, which is, do you have a frugalista tip to share?
Yeah, I do. Um, Mine's a coconut water story. That's what my frugalista tip is. So I
Coconut water.
believe, yeah, coconut water. Yeah, I believe it's part of my role as a father to embarrass my daughter. That's what I believe, right? And so I take great joy in doing it. And so that will include things like when I'm dropping her off at school, having Frozen 2 the soundtrack playing as loud as I possibly can, and teasing her friends and doing all that type of stuff. So I just have a great time doing it. It's fun. But one of the other things I've always enjoyed is that, and I love getting a deal, right? I love getting a deal. I just, part of me, I love it. And so I'm in love with coconut water, and I drink a lot of it. And so if I go to the supermarket or if I go shopping and I'm wandering down the aisle and I see that coconut water, my favorite brand, is 50% off. I'm not just going to get one or two or even three or four. I will literally fill an entire trolley and tell my daughter to get another trolley for anything else that we might need. And so I'll get 30, 40, as much as I possibly can of this coconut water at 50% off because I can just keep it at home. It's great. Happy days. And so here I am walking down the aisles of the shopping centre with a trolley full of coconut water. My daughter is hiding her head in shame because, yeah, I'm a little bit shameless and she's embarrassed by it. And so after I go check out and I swipe through all this coconut water, what happens is that you get the receipt, right? And it has, everyone's would have seen that total savings, right? So I play
Yeah,
this game with myself, and I love to. So the first thing is that I when I find something a staple that I have all the time, and I find it 50% off, I go to town and I do it with coconut water, I do it with rice milk, I do it with various other things. But one thing I really do that I've taught a lot of my students to do is how do you gamify wealth creation? How do you make it fun? How do you make it competitive? How do you make it a mini competition yourself and have a good time doing it? And so we've been talking a lot about those micro investing apps, which can be just incredible to be able to use. And like you, like I still use them today, and they compound really, really nicely. But I get the receipt; it tells me the total savings. So what I do with it instantaneously, I pull out my phone with the micro investing app on. If I've saved $135 or $37.50 or $2.50, I invest it straight away. And so that's I find a good deal. I bulk buy, save a whole bunch of money in the meantime, but then I go and invest it instantaneously. And so what I'm doing is I'm creating this positive feedback loop. So then I start to see that my wealth starts to go up, my investments go up, and it gives me this whole big dash of endorphin, like which I love, which is great. And this beautiful positive feedback loop starts happening. So I'm always finding more ways. How do I save more money? How do I invest it? How do I become more effective and efficient with my money? And just continually investing it, watching it grow. And it's fun. I find it fun. Maybe I'm just weird, but a lot of my students have used it, and they think it's good fun as well. And it's created some really solid results. And it's such a good, easy. Anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. And yeah, it's super. Brings along your starts to normalize wealth creation. Normal to you is buying some groceries. Like the more that we can do that, the better.
I'm a big lover myself of the half price specials. In fact, I mean, I don't do most of my shopping on Woolworths, but we do some. So, and I've signed up for the Black Friday specials. I got half price on the Everyday Rewards Plus, which gives you 10% off a shop once a month. So once a month, I go through all the 50% off, and I look for things we actually want and that we will tend to buy a lot of, including things like 10-kilo bags of rice, because that's how I roll.
I
And then I get
understand.
the
My
10,
wife's Singaporean. Like we go through rice
yeah,
like it's crazy, so I get it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I always have lots of rice. So buy all of those things, and then I get the 10% off. And then through the entertainment book, I then buy a gift card that gives me 4% off. So I do that every month.
Yeah, right.
The only thing is, and my kids know this, that this 50% off shop tends to get a lot of treaties in there, lots of taxes. So things that I wouldn't normally buy that come on sale at half price off, it's like, specialty ice creams and things that I wouldn't normally buy. That's when they get them.
Got it. They must be waiting with bated breath for that Friday, right? So they can get them.
Yeah, it's just a bit of a nice treat, like different things,
Yeah.
like I don't know, Biscoff spread. I think I bought that once for my youngest, and he's like, "Oh, I want that next time." I was like, "No, no, no, that's like a one-off." But then if it comes on special, which it sometimes does, I'll buy it. So certain things they do loop around, like, and as you've noticed with the coconut milk, they'll do that. So how often does it come on? Every couple of months, 6 weeks,
Yeah, I'd say
eight
it's every
weeks?
kind of every once a month is what I tend to find it at. And some
Check it out.
yeah, at the
Special.
time,
Something people for luxury products like certain brands of coffee and things like you can
right.
save a fortune, doing that. I mean, I save a fortune on rice, so you can overbuy it, but that's fine. It's not, so long as it's stored away from floodwaters or other things, you're generally okay. Yeah, yeah. Look, I hear you there. So Todd, thank you so much. Congratulations on your book, Escape the Middle, Switch Your Millionaire Mindset and Build Wealth That Outlives You, in all good bookstores and online now. So thank you so much.